So if you thought after 1 year and a month of Donald Trump 2.0 that there was no way Donald Trump and his administration could find new ways to humiliate themselves and by extension us, the people of this country in the process, Pam Bondi proved you wrong yesterday and proved that with the Trump administration, there is always a new low to achieve. Watch.
I am reclaiming my time, and when I reclaim my time, it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady is reclaiming her time.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
This is your committee, and she is embarrassing you.
Shame on you.
This wasn't a trick question.
You don't get to
Madam Attorney
reclaim
General.
your time.
Madam Attorney General,
because I don't like it.
Mr. Chairman, will you explain to the witness that he does reclaim his time?
Because I don't answer a question to your satisfaction.
I'm
if they're
talking.
not privileged,
Quiet.
Don't.
Well,
Did
Mr.
she
Chairman,
post
regular
anything?
order, please.
She
Regular
posted
order.
nothing on her X account, on her Twitter account during the Biden years.
Gentlelady.
Yet now, all of a sudden,
question
she's
asked.
going after.
Committee will be in
going after
order.
There was
files.
no question
Shame on
asked.
you.
This is not a game, Secretary.
I'm Attorney General.
My apologies, I couldn't tell.
I have no words. But that performance, in this instance, it wasn't me. That performance was so bad that while it was aimed at getting Bondi out of some sort of proverbial doghouse she must be in with Donald Trump, who's called her weak and ineffective, according to the Wall Street Journal, it is unlikely to reverse the negative views that the American people have about the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein files. Remember, 81% of Americans, based on polling over the summer, think Donald Trump is hiding something. There's more recent numbers. 52% think Trump is covering up Epstein's crimes. Americans believe that there's something in there. They've been told to believe that. 50% believe that Trump was involved in the crimes Epstein is accused of, and just 29% disagree. John Heilemann is back. Heilemann, this polling has gone from, over the summer, 81% thought Trump was somehow involved in keeping these secret. Now there are people who think Trump is involved in the crimes. I mean, that is taking a sort of a guilt by association, where it was a mystery that we talked about every day. Why isn't he releasing them? To now that they're out, you've got a majority of Americans who think that there's some proximity to the crimes. And this is a political calamity that Pam Bondi seemed, whether wittingly or unwittingly, to be determined to make worse yesterday.
Well, that's right, Nicole. In some ways, it's just the same story, except that every time we escalate from one level to the next, it makes Trump look guiltier because, the facts on the ground, the story that we've been telling this entire time through Epstein, the question we've been asking has been, Donald Trump is acting like a guilty person. What is he hiding? We don't know. We all would say he's not been accused of any crimes. We don't know what's in the Epstein files, but he's acting it like a guilty person. But we'll wait and see when we start to see the files, if we start to see the files. And the more that we see the files, the more we see Donald Trump's name is in these files in thousands of references. In the 3.5 million documents that they just released, he's in there. The number is in the tens of thousands of times. We don't know how often it's in the redacted versions. There have been some Democrats who've seen the unredacted who say it's way, way larger, a much, much larger number. And all of that doesn't get to the 2 million documents that the DOJ still has not put forward. So the notion that the deeper we get into this and the more that we learn about it, the more we see Trump's name in various ways. Again, not so far incriminating of having committed any crime or done anything wrong, done anything legally wrong, but the reality continues to be worse and worse for him because it begs the question in a louder and louder voice. Why are these 2 million documents still not being released? Why is his former personal lawyer, Todd Blanche, saying that the investigation is now over and there will be no more documents, even though we know there are 2 million more? Why? All of those whys, with each turn of the screw, with each turn of the crank, the picture gets darker for Donald Trump, even though there's been no direct evidence adduced that he's committed any kind of crime with any underage girl. And Pam Bondi, not just in that performance, but going all the way back to the initial Pam Bondi performance. Not the time when she went on television and said that she had the Epstein files there on her desk, but when she invited all those right-wing influencers into the White House and said, we're going to release all these files, all the information is going to come out. She is the proximate cause, not the deeper cause, because the deeper cause goes way back to Jeffrey Epstein and his associates, but she is the proximate cause of Donald Trump's biggest political liability throughout this entire term so far, and everything she does, as you said, wittingly or unwittingly, is only making it worse, because she seemed utterly hysterical yesterday on Capitol Hill, as even the right pointed out on multiple occasions yesterday.
Let me bring into our conversation the publisher of The Bulwark, the host of the Focus Group podcast, Sarah Longwell. Sarah, I keep thinking of the things they've done since they have been back. And what they've done since they've been back is that Bondi's deputy, Todd Blanche, went and met with a convicted child sex trafficker. And these are some of the things that Ghislaine Maxwell is accused of doing: participating in the sexual abuse. One of the survivors said she took off her underwear. These were girls who were raped. That is the textbook definition, regardless of what Megyn Kelly says about age. That is the legal crime of child rape. That's what pedophiles do. These are pedophiles. And you've got, again, wittingly or unwittingly, you've got Todd Blanche, who cozied up to her, went and met with her. After he met with her, she was moved to a low-security prison. She broke one of the programs where at that low-security prison, they train puppies, but you're not allowed to have a sex offender around a puppy because a puppy is viewed as vulnerable, and sex offenders aren't allowed to be around vulnerable people or creatures. They're breaking all of these systems since they've been back in office to do what? What do people think is behind all of the contortions when it comes to the Epstein files?
All right, well, let me tell you something. So this is the Epstein administration because there are two types of people in it. There are people who are in the Epstein files, and there are people who are covering up the Epstein files. There's nobody else in this administration that is not in one of those two buckets. But I have been hearing from voters now for a long time. You know, we've been listening to voters talk about Epstein. And one of the reasons Trump is so vulnerable on Epstein is because it goes to a central mythology of Trump, where Trump is the kind of person who is supposed to be above the elites that don't tell you things. Trump is like, no, I'm going to tell you if there are aliens in space. I'm going to tell you if there was a second shooter on the grassy knoll. Like, I am here to uncover all the conspiracy theories that you have ever been wondering about, that those elites, that those people have been hiding from you. And so the voters are genuinely confused as to why this guy who they thought was going to be sort of their advocate to uncover all the unseemly business of these global elites, why he now seems to be engaged in a cover-up. And they know now, like, what I don't understand is this is sort of the opposite of what you do in a crisis PR situation. Like, the rules of crisis communications is you tell it all, you tell it fast, and you tell the truth, and you try to get past it. They are making this bigger, I think, than it even had to be for them, the way that they are dripping this out. I mean, as John was just pointing out, everything that is so explosive that we've heard is like, there's still 3 million more files to see. That means this is what they've been willing to show us so far. And the way that she behaved yesterday, now look, the voters are not watching congressional hearings, but I gotta say, I don't understand the mode of going in there and behaving like a lunatic that is obviously going to raise the specter. Like, SNL is clearly going to do a skit about that this weekend. Those clips are going to be everywhere. It took it from what could have been sort of a sober hearing in which she behaved like a normal human being, acknowledged the victims, gave us some information, but instead she behaved like a crazy person. And now voters are much more likely to see it as a result of that, and much more likely to continue to not understand what they are hiding. I've watched the evolution with Trump voters from, wait, I'm mad that Pam Bondi's not releasing the files, or I don't know what's going on, to what is Trump doing? Trump is covering something up. Like, they are getting increasingly agitated by the lack of information, and it's starting to move not just from Bondi, but to Trump himself.
Yeah, and it's the lack of humanity against the survivors who have no political leanings, right? They go down there and they meet with Republicans as well. And they say that the Republicans are nice to them in private, but they won't do anything in public. So the survivors are not going to be easily smeared by whatever efforts. And I think that's why you've got all sorts of MAGA figures, Tim Pool and Eric Erickson, breaking with Pam Bondi today.